Hey guys, so it's finally the summer holidays, so I can finally make YouTube videos again. This took me ages to focus, so I hope it's actually focused this time. So since my favorite thing to do in the whole world is to read, well, not really my favorite thing, but it's what I want to do in my life. I want to study books. I thought I'd find my favorite books from my bookshelves, so not just what I have at home, and do a quick review of them and try and persuade you guys to read them. I purposely chose quite accessible books, so none of them are particularly difficult, maybe a few of them, but I'll talk about it when it comes to it. So the first book I have is The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I think I've reread this like 10 times at least. It's set in the 1950s and it's about a woman who goes on a stage, a journalism stage, and basically it's very heavily centered around gender roles, feminism, like female repression, which at the time was even more relevant than it is now. So for those of you who aren't really into today's feminism, I actually think this is a very valuable form of feminism that, you know, it addresses really real problems. Not that today's feminism doesn't, but that's another video. Okay, my next book is Stoner by John Williams. This is definitely quite similar to Catcher in the Rye. It's kind of a coming-of-age book, except a bit older and more mature than that. I read this such a long time ago that I forgot what it's about, to be honest, but it's about a literature teacher, and his passion kind of fades and it comes back, and it's all about kind of being normal and a bit depressive, and I don't know, it's a great book though. It's pretty easy to read. Everyone I've lent it to has loved it, and that goes from like 50-year-old friends to 50-year-old teachers, so it's a really great book. And it's quite similar to Catcher in the Rye, and I guess One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is somewhat similar to that. It's really good. The next book I have is Goethe's Faust. Okay, I know I promised no difficult books. This one is written in the style of Shakespeare, so it's quite a bit more challenging, but it's incredibly interesting. I think more interesting. I love Shakespeare, but it's more interesting than what Shakespeare ever wrote, and he was heavily inspired by Shakespeare. This story is very popular. Faust is basically a doctor who has everything in the world, but he's still depressed, so he summons the devil to show him happiness, and that the story is basically his adventures with the devil, his fling with a girl called Gretchen. It's very supernatural, magical, and eerie. There's a part 2 of this, but please, if you're going to read this in English, buy the translation by David Luke. It's the only translation where you will actually have a chance of understanding the text. There's a really cool film of this from the 1920s, I believe, but it's not very accurate to the book, but I recommend watching it. The next book, I actually just finished reading this one today. Okay, it's really good. Haruki Murakami, Norwegian Wood. I've read quite a few of Haruki Murakami's books. Not all of them impressed me very much. But this one's really great. For those of you who don't like classics, this is a great contemporary read. He's a Japanese writer, but he translates all his books himself, so the translations are excellent. It's written in a very hazy way. It's about kind of relationships, and it's kind of similar to Catcher in the Rye too. I mean, there's lots of references to it. There's references to the Beatles. Title is a Beatles song, actually. It's beautiful. Yeah, it's just a really beautiful book, and it's quite well put together. It's very nice. I hated the ending though. Please, just leave the ending out. Okay, the next book I have is L'étranger by Albert Camus. This is an existentialist novel. I would, if you speak a little bit of French, I would read it in French. It's very easy to read in French, but obviously, if you can't, then read it in English. It's a book about a guy who kills an Arab. He shoots him, I think, 3 or 6 times in the face, and the reason was because he felt warm. The sun was shining in his eyes, and he felt uncomfortable, so he shot the guy. Yeah, this is just a very absurd existentialist novel. It's my favorite piece of existentialist writing and my favorite French novel. It's a good read. It's very quick. It's full of ideas, and it really makes you think. Okay, the next book I have is Strangeland by Tracey Emin. Tracey Emin is a feminist contemporary artist. I think this book is great because if you don't like her art, it really explains how her art is made. Not in the sense that she goes into like details of how she produces it, but she goes on about her life, and her writing style is very much similar to her art style, and it's very striking and poignant and pulcrid. I would put a trigger warning on this if you're highly sensitive to these things, but it's a really great book. I was quite surprised to see how well she wrote it, actually. And it talks about abuse, sexual abuse, rape, alcohol abuse, mental illness, all those things. It's great. It's a very short read. I read it in one evening, and I was really shocked by how much I liked it. Okay, my last book is Thomas Mann's Death in Venice. This is actually a collection of his short stories, but so far I've only got through Death in Venice. I read it very recently. We actually studied it in school. It's about 70 pages. It's quite challenging. Everything on the page has some sort of greater significance. It's highly based on Nietzsche's ideas from the book The Birth of Tragedy, so if you read that, you will understand this very well. It has a lot of philosophical significance, and it talks about the artist in contemporary society. It has a bit, it kind of infringes on pedophilia, but that can be debated upon, actually. So that's a really good book. Sorry, I keep saying they're all good because they're really good books. So anyway, that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video and read it,